going on as usual. Today is Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. I think it's Tuesday. And $61 billion. And by the most wonderful time of the year, I mean fall economic statement time. $61 billion. Unbelievable amount of money being reported. Good thing she resigned. We would have fired her, probably, right? Or maybe not. Who knows? Actually, Trudeau fired her on Friday. But still, very interesting turn of events. Jagmeet Singh wants to wait until 2025, and that's not surprising because Jagmeet Singh is a young global leader who is looking out for himself and his pension and his ideology. It's not just about the pension, although that's an easy scapegoat. And he doesn't want the government to fall. So he has no confidence in Justin Trudeau, but confidence in the government, full confidence in the government. No worries about that $61 billion deficit. 40 billion, 60 billion, same difference, right? Says Jagmeet Singh. Why did Freeland resign? It's to position herself for Trudeau's job. She is trying to shove the blame that Trudeau was she's trying to throw Trudeau under the bus as he tried to throw her under the bus. He tried to throw her under the bus on Friday, and she thought to herself, I can screw him over on Monday. And she did. And so there we go. And so there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, Donald Trump is trolling, and this is a big show. Like, there's a whole lot of things going on, but it's mostly focused on the confidence, the economic statement, Freeland herself, and the economy and all of the things that are surrounding this. Confidence is a big deal. We really should, the government should have fallen yesterday. There's no doubt about it. And the fact that it didn't is suspicious. Where are the checks and balances? The Governor General should be weighing in, maybe. There should be something. However, we're still being forced to endure this government. Trump trolls Justin Trudeau, and he says the great state of Canada is stunned as the finance minister resigns or was fired from her position by Governor Justin Trudeau. Her behavior was totally toxic and not at all conducive to making deals which are good for the very unhappy citizens of Canada. She will not be missed. So Trump hated Freeland. Hated Freeland. In fact, he said, listen, Canada, you'll get a better deal if you send anybody but Freeland to negotiate with us. And they sent Freeland. Like, honestly, what ridiculous, unbelievable people we had running the country. We have running the country currently. Pierre Poilievre says, breaking the $40 billion deficit guardrail. Trudeau's deficit hits $62 billion. Liberals force Freeland through the fiscal guardrail and Canadians off the debt cliff. Sign here for common sense government. So they want to fundraise off you if you sign their petitions, but that's what they use because it makes people think that they're supporting something that's going to change things. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm very skeptical. I feel like it'll change things in the short term to regain confidence in the government. Then maybe they'll send you to a war and then they'll crack down on white people again. Right Blend was at the place where Justin Trudeau was present to ring in a new finance minister, and there was meetings and all sorts of other things happening. So the whole press pool was waiting for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And when he came out, this is what was waiting for him.
King Trudeau, what gives you the right to continue? What gives you the right to stay in office? You failed Canada. You've ruined our country. You're done. Walk away. You don't have an ounce of your father's integrity. At least he walked in the snow. You've ruined this country. Everyone around you is running from you. They're abandoning you. Chrystia Freeland, Sean Fraser, they've all left you. It's time for you to go. It's time for Canada to have an election. You're not the king. You're not the king of this country. You are not our king. You are a public servant and you have failed.
There you go. They drive off. So that's Right Blend, and he's right there. And the regular news caught this, and they were talking about it, saying, yeah, here it is.
Okay, that's the Prime Minister getting into his motorcade. I do not know who was shouting those questions, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it wasn't a member of the Parliamentary Press Gallery.
Maybe not. Is Right Blend, is he part of the Parliamentary Press Gallery yet? Might have his credentials revoked for that one. Mercedes Stevenson says, 2 senior sources tell me that the Prime Minister is not in a mindset to resign. He's planning to listen to caucus and then go to a Laurier fundraising event later tonight. We'll look at that. When Right Blend was talking to him, you can see in his footage, there's a kind of a smile he gives him. Hold on. Here it is. So while he's being yelled at and told you're not the king and have ruined the economy, you've ruined our country, people are running away from you, your entire government is in collapse at this point in time, and everybody seems to see it except you. This is the face of somebody who is very narcissistic. Very, very narcissistic. Wow. Right? So that's pretty incredible stuff going on there. And he doesn't want to resign. I was going to play the thing from The Wolf of Wall Street where he says, like, I'm not effing leaving. But that seemed too positive. And like, this is no. Don Stewart says the government House leader placed the budget documents on the table and ran away. She ran away. The $40 billion deficit came in at $62 billion. Call an election now. Like, that's a betrayal. It's 50% more than what they thought it might be. And they're not being fiscally responsible, despite them pretending to be fiscally responsible. Dan Albus says the government House leader just did the equivalent of drop-off drive-by of their fall economic statement. She dropped a $61.9 billion deficit and now expects MPs to accept it with no speeches, no questions or comments. Stupefying arrogance. Not democratic. So how is Jagmeet Singh going to vote confident? I mean, I don't think there's a confidence vote attached to this. This is just, hey, updating you guys. We overspent the credit card. Then we got a couple of credit cards out and overspent them. And then we took out a loan on the house. Because, F you. That's why. Marty Up North says, this is in the fall economic statement. I shit you not, page 69. The federal government is providing new tools to help with budgeting, and this is the example they gave. And so we can read it here. It says, Nina, a recent university graduate, is focused on paying off her interest-free Canada student loans and her student line of credit. While she has made progress in paying off her debt, it has been difficult to get a clear picture of her overall financial situation. Once operational, Nina will be able to use new innovative tools to opt in to securely share her bank account balance and transaction data with an accredited budgeting app. This will help Nina build an accurate budget, accurately track her spending, right? And be notified when she is spending beyond her budget, so she can refocus her spending on her goal, paying off her student loans. Does this map to anything that's maybe pertinent in Canadian governments and finance? Chrystia Freeland? Does this sound familiar? Like, you need to, if you take out a loan, you have to pay it back. And, if the government has a massive deficit, or if the government says, our guardrail is $40 billion, and then your handy budget app tells you that you're spending $60 billion, and you think that's okay, right? Like, it's a bit of hypocrisy. It's kind of funny, really, right? Paying off her student loans. With better access to her financial information, Nina will have the tools to stay on track with her budget, save interest on her student line of credit, and get out of debt faster. Well, that's rich coming from Chrystia Freeland, right? The other part of this is a digital ID. This is the framework for a digital ID. So you have contained within your digital ID your name, all your banking information, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they say, don't worry, all that information belongs to you on our government server. And when you give permission for us to share that with trusted partners, like banks and things, will just share the information you want to share with those banks and things. The thing that they're not telling you, though, is that if you own the server, you see everything on it. Like, it's like a computer, and the files in your computer, if you open them up and they're just raw files and you scrub through what the images look like, sometimes it's nothing, but sometimes you can find stuff, right? And so if the administrator has access, they can just surf through your stuff without having to ask you at all, right? So I don't trust the government, and they are not trustworthy. They've not behaved in a trustworthy way, and I don't want their Hippocratic app at all. And I don't want their digital ID, and I don't want any of it. My answer will be no. How about no? How about never? Not going to happen. Aaron Gunn says Trudeau's finance minister announces shock resignation. Budget deficit explodes by 50% from 40 to 60, right? That's 50%, 20 extra billion. Total chaos. Dozens of Liberal MPs call for Prime Minister's resignation. Total chaos. Jagmeet Singh, I still have confidence in this government. Everything's cool. Nothing to see here, says Jagmeet Singh. Everything's fine. The government of Canada is now projecting to owe $2.6 trillion. That's with a T. By 2030, and pay $70 billion, that's a B, in interest per year. They also claim they'll have $1 trillion in financial assets to back up this debt. What do they own that could possibly be worth $1 trillion? Think hard. The WEF is managing it for us. Oh, right. Our CPP, Canada Pension Plan, that is currently, as I said, under the management of the WEF, right? So that's what's going to back their debts. our retirement money. Don't worry, we can cover it. We can cover the debts. It's fine. Everything's fine, guys. Everything's fine. I don't know why you guys are worried. Right. Michael Barrett says Trudeau's government promised they wouldn't run more than a massive $40 billion deficit. They lied at $62 billion, 61.9. The NDP Liberals aren't worth the cost. Time for an election. And Polyev is going through this.
I rise today.
It's 4 minutes. It's 4 minutes, but we're going to listen to some of it. So here we go.
By the news that has just been made public. The government has finally revealed its true deficit number. Remember, this finance minister, this outgoing and now former finance minister, told the world that she was putting in place guardrails to limit the damage that her deficits could do. Her deficit plan was $40 billion, a mind-bogglingly large number that was already contributing to rekindling inflation again. This $40 billion was too big. It was out of control as it was. But at least to her credit, she said no more than that. And she decided she would have a guardrail. We know a guardrail is meant to stop vehicles from flying off cliffs.
It's getting a little wonky now, so we'll just carry on. Yeah, they blew through the guardrail, and now the finance minister's gone. I'm wary of them trying to make Freeland the victim. She cackled as she froze people's bank accounts without charge or conviction. This woman is not a victim. This woman is an evil, evil person who took Canada's laws, wiped her bottom with them, while gleefully disregarding them and cracking down on Canadians for telling her where to go when she wanted to crack down on vaccine mandates for a vaccine that, I mean, there are all sorts of issues with, right? And so she should be held accountable for the things that she did. She's not a victim here. She's not at all a victim here. Maybe a victim of Trudeau, but she put herself in that position, in my opinion. Theo actually wrote a funny comic. This guy's like a left-wing political cartoonist, and he pops up in my feed every now and then. And most of the time, I don't understand his comics. Most of the time, I think to myself, in order to find that funny, you have to believe a cracked version of reality. And even in that cracked version of reality, if what you're saying is true, it's still not that funny. This one's medium funny. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's Trudeau sitting behind a desk, and he's got a trapdoor button on his desk, but Chrystia Freeland can't see it. And he says, Chrystia, come in. Closer, a little to the left. And he's going to push the trapdoor button, right? Like, you're out. You're done. See you later, right? And she looks, like she always looks in her red dress and all that. Brian says, for those looking internationally, it's hard to overstate what a massive blow this is to Trudeau. Freeland has cut the legs out from under him, throwing his government into chaos just hours before a budget update to Parliament, and with Trump watching across the border. Brian Platt is responding to his own tweet. Chrystia Freeland resigns from Trudeau's cabinet. He continues, it appears to have been a major miscalculation from Trudeau. According to Freeland, he told her on Friday that she would be removed as finance minister, but he still left her in place to deliver today's budget. What? Okay. Yeah, she has made him pay dearly for that advance notice. An embargoed reading of the fall budget update has belatedly begun, so we should see those numbers around 4 p.m. today. For now, it seems we won't hear from Trudeau until he speaks to Parliament at some point this afternoon. Most cabinet ministers have stayed very quiet as they pass by reporters in the halls of Parliament. Everyone seems shocked. One lesson we can learn from today, don't fire your finance minister and then ask them to just go ahead and deliver their budget document anyway. Yeah, I should add that the letter makes it pretty clear that this is not just about Freeland being shuffled out. I'm told it was a vague role managing U.S. relations, Canada-U.S. relations. Freeland appears to be furious about the government chasing gimmicks and not preparing more seriously for Trump. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh calls on... Yeah, but just as a pause and a quick aside, the way she wants to prepare for Trump is to prepare for a full-blown trade war. And that's insane. Like, that is not... You don't want your leadership leading you into a trade war against one of your oldest, biggest trading partners. And also, what they want is you to secure your border and stop letting drugs into the United States, which is a valid and legitimate criticism that other people in the government, well, in the opposition, but in our representation, are making that point. And so, like, to go to war with another country who's a massive, massive contributor to our economy and who can replace everything we give them internally is a stupid idea, and it's a stupid idea. So I think that it would be a very, very bad idea to do what Chrystia Freeland thinks. But again, preparing for Trump more seriously, in my mind, is getting rid of the invasion going on, securing the border, and getting rid of the drugs, like he asked. Anyway, I continue with Brian Platt. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh calls on Trudeau to resign as Liberal leader, but won't say if he'll vote no confidence in the government and bring it down, which is one thing he does control. Singh will only say all options are on the table, which is dumb. Dominic LeBlanc will be named the new finance minister. I'll show you that in a few minutes. A source says, first reported by Radio Canada, LeBlanc has stick-handled the government's border security response to Trump's tariffs threat and was with Trudeau when he dined at Mar-a-Lago recently. So for now, he appears to be the government's new point person on managing the Trump file. Trudeau will take part in the swearing-in ceremony for LeBlanc at 4 p.m. His office says that will be the first time we've seen the Prime Minister since Freeland's scathing resignation letter. Yep. Pretty interesting stuff going on. Andrew Coyne says Trudeau, in a call that lasted an hour, told Freeland that she was to deliver the fall economic statement. He wanted to take finance portfolio away from her in exchange for a job overseeing U.S. relations. It would come with no staff, no money, and no authority. Yeah, just here's a make work project I decided to come up with for you. Right? Yay. Andrew Coyne says, a source said Mr. Trudeau spoke to Ms. Freeland in a Zoom call and offered a cabinet portfolio on Canada-U.S. relations, but without any ministry attached. The source said she regarded the offer as a massive demotion. Yeah. Hi, Deputy Prime Minister. We need to talk. Andrew Coyne continues, the two sources close to Mr. Carney strongly suggested that he will not accept the offer from the Prime Minister to join the government. Still, at a Tuesday night speech during a dinner to promote women's involvement in politics, Mr. Trudeau took credit for appointing Ms. Freeland, noting that she is Canada's first female finance minister. 3 days later, he fired her. At the speech, he said, quote, I've touted the adage, add women, change politics, which to us is more than just words. We've taken action to make it a reality, appointing the first female finance minister, Trudeau said on December 10th. What a difference a week makes, right? And I mean, what'll happen by this time next week, right? What better time than to get rid of your leader than Christmas Eve, right? The news cycle will move on, right? Nobody will even notice. Martin says, the Prime Minister's office is a dictatorship. The truth is coming out. Oh, hold on. I think I've missed one here. No. Hold on. I've got to move it around. Julia says, why did Chrystia Freeland resign? In politics, nothing is what it seems. This isn't because of a dispute with Trudeau over tariffs and spending. She resigned because she's making a play for his job while simultaneously outflanking Mark Carney. Let me explain the elaborate game that I think is afoot. I think he's right here. He's got some insight. It's pretty interesting. The whole world can see that Trudeau's star is fading. Even the Canadian dollar is in free fall. His own party wants him gone. Freeland and his deputy prime minister and finance minister is tied at the hip to Trudeau's sinking ship. Rumors were Trudeau was about to fire Freeland as his fall gal, and Mark Carney was being floated as her replacement, or possibly even Justin Trudeau's. But here's where things get devious, as she uses her resignation as a way to untie herself from Trudeau's sinking ship, while simultaneously using it as a way to outflank Mark Carney in the bid for Liberal leadership. By using a fiscal dispute as an excuse to resign from cabinet, even as she stays on as an MP, unlike Morneau in 2020 or Jody Wilson-Raybould in 2019, who both left politics entirely, she's pushing the Trudeau regime's financial disasters back into Trudeau's lap. By preemptively resigning, she's pinning the blame on his incompetent leadership, and he looks ridiculous if he tries to pin the blame on her. With this bit of theater, she's positioned herself as a comparative voice of reason, expressing concern for Canada's future while insinuating grave doubts about Trudeau's competence. Her play prevents Trudeau from scapegoating her as the fall guy. Now he owns what his regime has wrought. This matters for whoever he tries to appoint to replace her. Freeland has essentially triggered a leadership crisis in the Liberal Party by resigning in this dramatic manner, refusing to be part of his cabinet going forward, but staying on as an MP. She's outflanked Trudeau's effort to pin Canada's death spiral on her. He doesn't get a fresh start by firing her and then appointing someone to replace her, but she does, or she hopes she does. Meanwhile, anyone who's appointed by Trudeau to replace her is tying their career to his sinking ship. LeBlanc wants to take over leadership too, and he's been open about it, and was the heir apparent until this happened. Thus, the role of Deputy Prime Minister and or Finance Minister has become a hot potato as long as he's captain of the ship. He's left struggling to create a stable cabinet as the rats try to flee his sinking ship. When even his own deputy prime minister and finance minister have publicly expressed doubts about his competence, that's confidence, okay? So, if your deputy prime minister walks out on you, if the finance minister says, I don't think this budget is going to work, And she's saying that we need to spend more, but that's not an argument that makes any kind of rational sense. But what's important here is she's saying, I don't have confidence in this prime minister. So if your lieutenants, if your right-hand men and women don't have confidence in you, then you're done, right? Like, put it into a mafia perspective. If you're the boss of a family and your capos don't have confidence in you, or you have 5 capos and 3 of them leave and or express that they don't have confidence in you, you're kind of screwed. You can't do what you usually can do because you don't have your capos to go and make sure that everybody does what they're supposed to do. The whole thing is unwinding. These people can't maintain power this way. Okay. It's a huge blow to Trudeau's ability to maneuver or do anything. He has already been outflanked, outmaneuvered by Poilievre legislatively because Poilievre is in control of the House of Commons because of the filibuster. And now his party is revolting all the way up to the deputy prime minister. It's like, it's huge. Aside from me jumping out of my chair and saying like, this is huge. It's huge. Okay. Like, I've never seen anything like this. Like Paul Martin walking out on Jean Chrétien, right? It's unthinkable. That's not possible. You can't do that. You don't do that to people, right? If there's a disagreement, you go in, you have your conversation. If it's irreconcilable, they have an agreement and then they leave. This is like very public, like holy smokeroonies, right? Somebody just got run over, and it was Trudeau by Freeland's bus. Get it? Okay, it's massive. Okay, when even his own deputy prime minister and finance minister have publicly expressed grave doubts about his competence and resigned from his cabinet in protest, it would be like kryptonite for the future of the Liberal Party to allow him to lead the party into the next election. He will be forced to resign in the coming weeks and months. Maybe February 25th when Jagmeet Singh says it's time to have a confidence vote. Julius continues, prior to her resignation, there were unhappy members, but only one camp, Trudeau's, and Mark Carney was being groomed as his replacement by the entire regime, by the media and so on. But by preemptively resigning while throwing shade on Trudeau's competence, Freeland has created a rival camp in the Liberal Party. The loyalty of party members is now being split by this rift. Do they stand with him as he sinks, or sympathize with her? Already some MPs, like Anand, have made noises of sympathy towards Freeland. How can they not? As a DEI-obsessed government and with Trudeau's track record of firing female members of his government, Freeland is now well positioned to pick up their support, the support of MPs trying to distance themselves from Trudeau's sinking ship. But she's also simultaneously thrown a wrench in Mark Carney's plans. I don't know that this is as good a point as some of his other points. The idea, like, the Liberal Party has got along with every single woman being thrown under the bus by Trudeau. Every single one. Nobody says anything at all. And they kind of get uncomfortable when you bring it up. So, like, I'm not thinking that the Liberal Party has suddenly grown a conscience. Okay? Like, that's... I don't think so. That's not what's going on here. So I don't think that's as great a point, but we'll see. I think a lot of people are still hitching their wagons to Trudeau until he completely falls or fails. And I mean, like, we're watching it in real time. He is in the middle of the fall, right? Like, he might break his wrist when he hits the ground, but we're watching him fall in real time right now. Back to Julius. By preventing Trudeau from setting her up as his fall guy, Carney can no longer be brought in as the savior to clean up her mess. Freeland has signaled that it's Trudeau's mess, not hers, that needs to be cleaned up. But Carney is Trudeau's special economic advisor. By association, this has now become his mess too. And if he takes a role in Trudeau's cabinet, he's Trudeau's special guy, brought in by incompetent Trudeau to clean up Trudeau's and his own mess, Mark Carney's. If he accepts the job now, he would be unequivocally tying himself to Trudeau's sinking ship. Thus, Freeland's plays shrewdly forces Carney to either stay away or to rebrand himself and as also being critical of Trudeau in order to avoid further tainting himself with Trudeau's toxic aura. He can't slip smoothly into the role anymore. He either has to become adversarial and publicly critical of Trudeau, like Freeland has, or he goes down with Trudeau's ship before his career in the Liberal Party even gets started. Chess. It's chess. It's so fun. It's so fun. Like, stuff like this, bread and butter, man. I love this stuff. It's ridiculous because it's like, I never even really watched The West Wing, but it's like The West Wing in real time, or House of Cards or whatever. Like, you watch the people's opinions on things shift and turn and turn and turn, and Freeland outflanked them and outmaneuvered them, and now they're kind of screwed, and it's super fun to watch because they're going to squirm about it, and that's great. I like that. It's funny because when people ask them questions and then they flush a little bit because they know that the question is a valid one, but they don't have a good answer, so they can't say anything about it. And so they squirm and they say nonsense, and then we all laugh about it because they're saying nonsense because they're screwed and they know it. Julius continues, the crisis that Freeland has unleashed with her resignation and public criticism of Trudeau's competence has turned service in Trudeau's cabinet into a career-threatening proposition. It's like Christmas. It is Christmas. As his hold over the party unravels, the probability that someone other than Trudeau will be leading the Liberals into the next election increases dramatically. Instead, we have two rival camps emerging as Trudeau's successor, Carney versus Freeland, and both of those parties fail. And like, for different reasons. Carney's teeth are yellow and he's unelectable. I'm sorry. It's just true. And Freeland's play positions Carney as inept Trudeau's handpicked guy and co-architect of Trudeau's financial disaster, with her positioning herself as the alternative. He's not putting much meat on what she's proposing, but what she's proposing is pretty crazy. After Freeland's grotesque mismanagement of Canada's finances during her tenure, the idea that she suddenly has misgivings about Trudeau's spending or that she's suddenly growing a conscience is laughable. But this alternative explanation makes a lot more sense. Trudeau's time is ending. The rats are finding their way off the ship and positioning themselves to try to seize the throne. Whether Freeland's elaborate game succeeds is another matter altogether. Her hands are stained. Her play reeks of desperation, but she's a skilled manipulator. Otherwise, she wouldn't have lasted this long in Liberal politics. And never underestimate the capacity of the Liberal Party, the media, the Liberal voters to rewrite history according to some new emerging narrative as their love affair with Trudeau comes to an end. At minimum, she has improved her chances of being re-elected by distancing herself from Trudeau and by pinning the economic wreckage caused by his leadership and her tenure as finance minister on him. But by splitting the party into two camps, she's also forcing the other Liberal Party members to pick sides. The Liberals can either remain loyal to Trudeau, jump ship to Freeland's camp, or set up a third rival camp. Anyone considering option 3 faces a much more difficult run for leadership role now that Trudeau and Freeland, as 1 and 2 of the Liberal Party, are in rival camps, and by being the first to jump ship, if a third camp does emerge, she can easily smear them as being Trudeau's lackeys because they continue to serve a failing Trudeau after she split. Meanwhile, Carney, as Trudeau's current special economic advisor, is going to have to find some creative way to rebrand himself to avoid tying himself to Trudeau's sinking ship or stay away altogether. In the world of politics, the headlines are all lies while the real story plays out in the subtext. Yeah, it's like Christmas. It's super fun. This kind of stuff. It is. This is why I do this show. I love this stuff. I've been smiling all day. And yesterday, I couldn't concentrate worth anything. It was ridiculous. I was like, well, I'll do some work and then maybe something will have happened. And I was doing some stuff. And man, every 5 minutes, I was like, maybe something's happened. Ridiculous. I had question period on in the background. I was disappointed. There were everybody was calling for resignations. It was interesting, but it could have been better. We could have had a confidence vote. I mean, not really. But, it just seemed like we have traitors in the government and people should do something to stop it. Anyway, Martin says the Prime Minister's office is a dictatorship. The truth is coming out. So Martin is a former bureaucrat. I think he worked for Morneau, but he's trying to cast Freeland as the victim here. I just wanted to put this out there because I thought it was interesting. Unacceptable Cherry says she's not the victim here. But anyway, here's just a little bit of more color on Freeland. Prime Minister's office is a dictatorship. This guy's on Team Freeland. The truth is coming out. As a former staffer for Trudeau's only other finance minister, Bill Morneau, I can personally attest to the damaging effects of this culture. In 21, I experienced firsthand how the untamed whispers and engineered leaks from senior PMO staff undermined Morneau's credibility as he worked to safeguard our economy amid the COVID crisis. When Morneau was focused on properly investing taxpayer funds, the Prime Minister's office was hyper-fixated on spending it. The treatment of Freeland can only be viewed through the same lens, a disturbing trend that has turned what should be one of the most respected offices in the country into a circus. This trend is not just alarming, it's symptomatic of a toxic culture within the Prime Minister's office that disregards the invaluable contributions of its cabinet. The Prime Minister and PMO's handling of Freeland also reveals a disturbing pattern of sidelining anyone who dares disagree with him or his inner circle. And Unacceptable Cherry says, while I applaud your candor, I disagree that Freeland be thought of as a victim. She laughed while freezing families' bank accounts. She plotted to paint the convoy as terrorists who were her victims. So yeah, she's as bad as the rest. So let's talk about money, because the economy is It's the most important thing, or one of the most important things for a properly functioning society, right? And Theo Fleury says, 10 years of global citizen Justin Trudeau, the global communist idiot. This is what you get. Trudeau's new socialist program, dental food programs, etc., have brought an extra $22 billion to the budget. We don't even know if we even have a legitimate government after the 2019 and 21 elections with the foreign interference scandal not resolved. It's time to let the people decide and call an election. Any other scenario is unacceptable. Jagmeet Singh, do the right thing and vote non-confidence and help save the country from further damage. The time is now. Yeah, maybe not though, because Jagmeet Singh he wants his pension and is really close to Christmas. Next question. Andrew Coyne says, now hearing the fall economic statement has been tabled. After all, deficit $62 billion for 23-24, an overrun of more than 50% over what we were told it would be just 8 months ago. Just utterly out of control. $48 billion for the current fiscal year, but that projection is as worthless as the last. It's $8 billion over the budget projection, but it could be $30 billion over by the time the numbers are all in. The truth is, we just don't really know how much the deficit is anymore, not even to the nearest $20 billion. The government has lost control of the country's finances, as earlier it lost control of immigration, and it will soon lose control of caucus. That's Andrew Coyne, by the way. When the liberal press is gunning for you, well, jeepers creepers, things have changed, right? It's very interesting. Kirk says the fall economic statement has $817 million in additional spending in healthcare support for asylum seekers and refugees. Not healthcare for you. Asylum seekers and refugees, an additional $490 million to Quebec to help with, you guessed it, asylum seekers, an additional $77 million to house asylum seekers next year, plus another $100 million for more asylum claimants' lodging costs. Special immigration measures for Gaza and Ukraine will cost $112 million over the next 3 years. Asylum and refugees' direct additional costs are adding billions to our deficit, and I suspect this is on the lower side as claims are going through the roof, and we haven't had increased influx from the U.S. yet. We need mass deportations ASAP. It's a shame that Mr. Polyev is not planning on doing any of that. Elizabeth May starts talking about this stuff, and she starts talking. It's funny. I listened to her whole statement, and she's talking about how, we need to get our fiscal house in order. But about halfway through, she says, in order to be able to fight climate change, which is really the biggest threat, the fall economic statement shows a $62 billion deficit. That is a clear and present danger to Canada. It is bad for our economy, bad for our citizens, bad for everybody today, not in 10 years, not in 15 years, not in 100 years. Today, people are struggling to afford anything because of all of the ridiculous spending that they're doing. Look at what's happening in El Salvador and what's the other one? El Salvador, Argentina, and the socialist policies that Canada is implementing and the excuses to help people do nothing but harm people and cause inflation to the point of everything costs a lot more and people have a lot less. And so you've got this massive inflationary situation where your regular staples, which used to cost a small amount of money, now cost a lot of money, and people don't have that money to cover it. And she's saying, oh yeah, but the real problem is we need to focus on climate change and et cetera, et cetera. And it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. She's ridiculous. So any politician, any political party that's focused solely on climate change needs to be investigated with their funding, because climate change is a hoax. It's a hoax, top to bottom. It's a hoax, and it's used to steal money from us. And if they stop geoengineering, if they stop spraying in the skies, we'd have our winter back. We'd have our regular weather back. They're manipulating this, so we believe they're crap, they're lies. It's the same as COVID. It's the same as the COVID testing and all the data they were getting from the COVID testing. This is just a different form of data manipulation via changing storms, dissipating storms, making sure that the weather's just warm enough so that it's not snow, it's rain, so you don't get snow to accumulate. All sorts of manipulative tactics used to make it seem like climate change is something that only taxing us more will work to control, which is bullshit. And it's just it's another control mechanism, and we need to get these people out of leadership positions in order to fix it. But we can fix it, and not in 100 years. Like I think as soon as we stop geoengineering, I think within a year, and it might take a year or two to get back to like a normal climate. Like when you smoke, and then all the chemicals that they put in the cigarettes and the tobacco gets into your lungs and causes cancer and stuff, and then, or maybe not causes cancer, but gets into your lungs and causes issues. And then if you stop smoking after 7 years, you kind of heal up, right? Like I think that the Earth can do exactly the same thing. And I think that it happens a lot faster because the systems are designed to work that way. And we're disrupting those systems. And as soon as we stop disrupting those systems, they'll start running like the way they should. That's just my speculation, though. But I'm very, very confident in it. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful